Namaskar, Nilesh here. I'm here with you with the next session episode of Shraddha and Pradnya. In this episode, we are going to look at the ancestry, the pedigree of sage Maharshi Valmiki, the composer and writer of Valmiki Ramayana. No specific individual asked me this question, or in fact, I can say that anytime I'm talking about Ramayana, this question will pop up. So it is a frequently asked question. And it's not so much that people don't know all the details. In fact, usually a specific individual asking the question has a certain story by heart. Invariably, the person may not know the reference, the source where this particular narration of Valmiki originated, but the person knows the story by heart, and in some fashion believes that that is the correct narration of Valmiki's ancestry, Valmiki's pedigree, and maybe just curious to know what I think of it. And unless somebody tells me the source of it, I don't know what to think of it. Because remember, we get the knowledge through different sources: pratyaksha, anumana, upamana, shabda pramanani, pratyaksha, anumana, shruti, smruti, aitiya, itihasa, okay, Puranas, different narration. These are different sources. So anytime somebody tells you something, we can just take this as a narration, one specific reference. If somebody can provide a specific reference to the text, then we can think of this as a Shabda Praman. But Shabda Praman, not in the sense it is always understood in the Darshana-Shastra. Because, for example, when Shabda is used in the Nyaya Darshan, or Pratyaksha, Anumana, Agama Pramanani in the Yoga Darshan, that Agama, in the sense of background knowledge, is used with the understanding, with the assumption that it is a authoritative knowledge, not based on authority fallacy. By authority, somebody who is very sincere, very knowledgeable, has a long tapasya, and based on his or her work has established himself or herself as an authority, has looked at specific references from multiple different perspectives. So that's the assumption. So when somebody just speaks something, refers to something, and he or she may or may not able to refer to the background reference, still we don't know. I don't know what to make of it. Okay, so let's get into the question that we will typically get as it relates to Valmiki's ancestry. So this is our Shraddha and Pradnya, part 6. All right. And the issue is, what is the ancestry or pedigree of Maharshi Valmiki? We are referring to Maharshi Valmiki of Valmiki Ramayana, the composer, writer of Valmiki Ramayana, because there were many Valmikis, as we will find out. Today, that is 9th of October 2022, is the day of Valmiki Jayanti. And these 4 lines are composed, written by my good friend Varun Ranade in memory of Valmiki. Varenyam namama sharanyam bhajamo Maharshi sada Valmikim pujayama nimittena kojagiri pujanasya punasmaranam tasya janmotsavasya. This is addressed to Maharshi Valmiki. Now, the different stories that I refer to, they come from different sources. The person who narrates the story may not always know. Most cases, they do not know where the source is. And this also creates a problem of a different kind, because they think whatever they are quoting is from Valmiki Ramayana. And so usually the question would be, is this true? Or they assume that it is true, and therefore the question is, okay, so how come this happened, and relate a question related to that story. Okay, now most we don't have answers to all this, all the mysteries of life, all the mysteries of itihasa. That's number one. But it becomes really problematic when somebody quotes a source which is not authentic source, or which is not consistent with the main text. And by main text, in this case, I'm referring to Valmiki Ramayana. Then we have to use the common sense, or in Vijnana Buddhi, scientific acumen, what we call it as a gradation, Mahatva Mapan, Taratamya, common sense, which is to say, when multiple pieces of information comes to us, we do this in everyday practice. Depending on the source, we decide which particular source or which particular information to give more weightage to in making our decision, depending on the quality of a source. That same rule applies here too. One story that you would have heard in some form, mostly modified by the time it came to you from wherever you heard it, from your grandma, or from a Harikatha Vachak, or from a Kirtankar. Okay, this has basis in Skanda Purana. Again, as I said, the story that you actually heard may be slightly different, improvised, okay, what you can say, embellished, okay, based on this basis. So there is one version of it, and actually, if you look at the Skanda Purana reference, I'm going to show it to you. It's not referring to Maharshi Valmiki of Valmiki Ramayana, okay, but the reference is used, and therefore this particular story has turned into, has been superimposed on Maharshi Valmiki. And I have heard this too in some embellished form, but here you go. It comes in the Skanda Purana, in the second kanda. Within that second kanda, there is one chapter or a section called Vaishakha Masa Mahatmya. Okay, the importance or eulogy or the praise of Vaishakha month and different vrata to be done in the month of Vaishakha. We will not go into why that is so. Even if we discuss for 30 minutes, we will not know exactly why Vaishakha was considered important. There is a Masa Mahatmya for each of the 12 months, but many times it's not unusual that you will hear Vaishakha Masa Mahatmya, Kartika Masa Mahatmya, and Margashrisha Masa Mahatmya. Okay, so one of these given here is a Vaishakha Masa Mahatmya. And within that, the 21st Adhyaya has these verses. Again, I don't want to go through all of them, but quickly jump to verse number 56. Okay, there is a dialogue going on. We will not go into the details, but some sage, Narad Muni, somebody like this, because this is the story you would have heard too, where this person is a hunter. Okay, the name is not given. And this hunter is having a dialogue with the sage or with Narada. And Narada Muni, or that sage, is describing the importance of a Vishnu Sahasranam first in certain context, which we will not look at right now. So he says, the sage or the Narad says, all the names of Vishnu, or everyone considers the names of Vishnu considered superior to all the Vedas. And of the innumerable names, the 1,000 names called Vishnu Sahasranam are even further superior. That means to say there are even additional names of Vishnu or other names of Bhagwan. The name Rama is on par with Vishnu Sahasranam, that you also see in the Rama Raksha Stotra, right? Bhagwan Shiva is saying that Sahasranama Tattulyam Rama Nama Varanane. Okay, equivalent to the Vishnu Sahasranam is just uttering the name of Rama once, because as soon as we say Rama, immediately the whole charitra of Rama comes in front of us. It has a certain effect on our mind as we think of his attributes and so on. In comparison to that, actually, even understanding or contemplating the virtues of Vishnu is not that easy, or doesn't immediately makes an impact. That's a different subject. Anyways, let's go further. So he says, therefore, O hunter, repeat the name of Ram continuously. Perform all those holy rites till death. And he has described many other vrata. Then he says, O hunter, thereby you will be reborn in the family of sage Valmik or Valmika or Valmiki. You will attain the fame on the earth by the name Valmiki, because you're going to be born in the family of sage Valmik. Now, what is interesting is here it's already the person is saying, the person is acknowledging the famous sage Valmiki. And to this hunter, this is a katha from a Skanda Purana, whatever its basis, this sage or Narad is telling the hunter that do take the name of Ram so that you will be born in the family of sage Valmiki. Why? Because of this connection of sage Valmiki with Ramayana. Now, when a person, someone who may not be even performing good acts, when he takes to the bhakti, takes to the Ramanam, if you read Bhagavad Gita, there are descriptions that the person, he starts making a progress in the right direction. And even when he may not complete all that he needs to do to bring himself to the standard of fulfillment, detachment, all that he might have done or all that he or she does in a given life does not go to waste. And in fact, his or her journey continues in the next life from that point. That's what he's referring to in some sense, that, hey, you'll be reborn in the family of sage Valmiki, which will be great, okay, in his ancestry, and your journey would continue. That's all this is said. Now, based on this, actually, so Skanda Purana is not saying anything, is not creating another artificial story with respect to sage Valmiki, Maharshi Valmiki. But many individuals, and I don't know who these individuals are, but they have taken this as a basis to build a story that Valmiki was a hunter. Okay, this is one version of it. Let's go to the next one. You might have heard that Valmiki, as his original name or name before he became Valmiki, was Ratnakar, and he was a dacoit, okay, or dacoit, or whatever you want to call the word, a looter, somebody who is to snatch things away from other individuals, okay, in a not improper manner. Now we have them everywhere through different means, through the stock market and through all kinds of different nefarious means. Be it as it may, what is the origin of this? Based on this, again, people will just keep on telling this story. It gets repeated ad nauseum. Okay. I mean, I get tired of it. Every time I talk of Ramayana and someone has to interestingly tell this story. Okay. Ratnakar the dacoit. Okay. And then eventually he turned into Valmiki. Now, what is the origin of it? It comes from, again, there may be 10 other stories of related to Valmiki. I don't know the origin of this. These were the few prominent stories. Actually, there is one which is very popular in Maharashtra. I'll just mention after this, okay? But anyway, so Ratnakar the dacoit, very similar to this. Just the name Ratnakar is not mentioned, at least the version that I have heard. Where does this come from? This comes from a Ramayana written in the 15th century in Bengal. Okay, it's called Kritivasi Ramayana. Okay, and if you read it, it became quite popular within Bengal, but also in, you can say, the entire belt of River Ganga. And it appears it has made influence on rest of the India too. Possibly the story that is so popular in Maharashtra as a Valya Koli more than likely has its roots here. Unfortunately, or as it happens, this has nothing to do with Valmiki Ramayana as far as the ancestry pedigree of Valmiki is concerned. Okay, but how is this story told? The story is told, for example, that there was a great sinner on earth. Okay, his name was Ratnakara. He was doing all kinds of things like looting people and so on. He had been a dacoit and lived on forcibly snatching others' belongings, and was a great sinner living in a forest. This is all coming from this Kritivas Ramayana. Okay, both Narad and Brahma then went to that forest where Ratnakara was living, disguised as ascetics. As luck would have it, Ratnakara could not loot anyone because no one passed that way on that day. He then climbed high in a tree and found Narad and Brahma coming together. concealing himself in the forest, he thought he could snatch away the robes of the two ascetics, and maybe the tambora of or tambaru of Narad, possibly, right? Okay. So he does that, and finally, when Narad Muni comes, I'll not go into that story. Most of you are too familiar with it. The Brahma spoke to the sage and he says, up to now you were known as Ratnakar, but now onwards, please chant the name of Rama, but henceforth you shall be known as Valmiki. Now, this is very funny because the name of Rama has purified you. Now, look at the whole funny thing. Please remember this. And so now, therefore, you will create his Ramayana in 7 kandas. Valmiki, you will be called Valmiki. Then Valmiki spoke with humility. I'm quite an illiterate person, having no knowledge of kavyas and chandas. How can I create literature? I'm stopping here because this particular Kritivasi Ramayana will go and tell you how Valmiki finally learned all this and all the blessings and so on. Against this, we have to see the contrast. Okay, we have to see the contrast of what Valmiki Ramayana has to say. Now, why is this important, guys? This is basic common sense. This is not even some aspect of scientific acumen like Mahatva Mapan or Taratamya that I mentioned. And if we are not willing to do this, it is going to be a nightmare, guys. Okay. You will find many leftist authors, leftist writers, they will come in a disguise of a dharmic and will try to fool you. But I mean, if we are at such a pathetic level, okay, and I'm not talking of so-called, whatever we call illiterate people, the villagers, no, I grew up in a village and I have seen how smart these folks are. It is the people whose roots have been destroyed, the deracinated folks, usually with a 1 or 2 degrees, possibly have gone to English-speaking schools. I'm not just like harping on English medium schools or anything, although that has created a lot of chaos in terms of deracination. But people with a possibly couple of degrees, many people of Indian origin, America, outside India, they are well-to-do in many other aspects of life or may not be well-to-do. It doesn't matter what class they come from, what background they come from, financial or otherwise. But they will just, when it matters, in their personal matters, they will not be so naive and foolish. But when it comes to Ramayana, when it comes to Mahabharata, when it comes to the message of Bhagavad Gita, when it comes to the Vedas, then they will just, I don't understand, by the way, or actually I do understand. I'm going to give you why it happens. Krishna explains that very well in Bhagavad Gita. They almost just like iron getting attracted towards the magnet. Or flies getting attracted towards the flame. They just get attracted and get burned. Okay. And then without realizing, they just write blogs, give lectures about this. But these very shrewd leftist folks, do you know what they will do? They will tell these different stories, just like I quoted from Skanda Purana, or from this other 15th century variation of Ramayana written in Bengal. And they will try to tell us in a very altruistic, kind of fashion, saying, guys, that's the beauty of Hinduism, No, that's not the beauty of Hinduism. There could be different variations written with a particular context. Desha, Kala, Patra, the person who is writing a specific version of Ramayana, Mahabharata, or taking a story from Mahabharata, modifying it and telling in a certain way, might have his or her own rationale for it. But we, without knowing the rationale, whatever it is, or if we don't understand it, why accept it? Just trying to continue with this and regurgitate is doing atrocious nonsense for our tradition. Just like we talk Sanatano Nitya Nutana, which means it is capable of refreshing itself. We are willing to change. Doesn't mean we are willing to just consume some nonsense, or we are consume something that was created in a specific situation, but consume it without knowing the background knowledge. But some of these leftist authors, they will deliberately, to cause utpat, okay, will tell these multiple stories and say, look, we can believe whatever the hell we want, and that is the beauty of Hinduism. Let me tell you, that is not the beauty of Hinduism. It is very different than one subscribing to a specific path. There are different sampradayas, and as long as you take to any of the legitimate sampradayas, yes, that's perfectly fine. If you are into, say, we want to accept certain level of type of medicine, so let's take, for example, the allopathy, homeopathy, Ayurveda. Okay, if you want to follow, subscribe to any one of the three, just as an example, there could be 10 other disciplines in medicine. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. Many sensible people are doing it. You can find many sensible people in all three different streams. That is not to say that many not so sensible people are also following in these three different streams, but we have some background. So you may follow Ayurveda, you may follow homeopathy, you may follow allopathy, or you may even synthesize in certain fashion and use as appropriate. That's all fine. But anything goes, and that is the beauty of Hinduism. That is not true. But I will tell you, when I go to many conferences, instead of people objectively, analytically discussing some of the controversial issue created because of a lot of idiocy and ignorance by so-called learned people, they will just wash it off, just brush it off, whatever you want to call it, level field everything. Look at everyone with the same brush is by simply saying, Hari Ananta, Hari Katha Ananta. The point behind Hari Ananta, Hari Katha Ananta is the unlimited ongoing nature of the Bhagwan. There is no limit to it. We cannot know everything else, just like a Ananto Vai Vedaha. Veda is unlimited. Don't just keep on saying one day I'm going to master all the Vedas. That will just not happen. Even if you complete 4 books, that is not sufficient. 4 books as in Rigveda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, Atharva Veda. So learn judiciously. That is the point. That is the aim of Hari Ananta, Hari Katha Ananta. It doesn't mean anything goes, but many times that is unfortunately what people understand. That's why I'm emphasizing it multiple times. Let's look at what Valmiki Ramayana has to say about Valmiki, about Maharshi Valmiki. These are the references from Uttarakhand, for example. And what it's saying in the 93 Sarga, same as a chapter or an adhyaya, you can say, is that Valmiki there is referred as Prachetas Muni Valmiki. Okay? So Muni Prachetas Tada. Prachetas Muni Valmiki. Now, where does this come from? We will look at it, for example. Another name you will see, and I don't know if I already mentioned it, but sometime Valmiki Muni is referred to as a Bhargavena. Okay, so he also belongs to Bhrigu dynasty. Now, immediately Bhrigu and just a one particular one, no, not at all. Actually, that Bhrigu dynasty is so widespread within India and frankly from India around the world. Okay, and that can be found actually in the genetic haplogroups. Okay, now that's not to say a certain haplogroup there is a stamp somewhere saying it is from a Bhrigu dynasty. No, but based on its location, usually its origin, typically in all genetics paper you will find attributed to they will say Iran, Persia. And why is that? Because they don't want to refer to India. If you go back like not that long ago, 2000 plus years, and then Persia is nothing but India, Pakistan is nothing but India, the Bharata Varsha, Afghanistan is nothing but India, the Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, western part of China, Tibet, that's all Bharata Varsha. Okay, it's very important to understand. So is if you go down to Sri Lanka, you go to Thailand, Laos, okay, Cambodia, Vietnam, it had this cultural influence of Sanatana Dharma. All right. So Bhargava is also referred to as an epithet, you can say, for Rishi Valmiki. And that's how old it is. I mean, we're talking of more than 14,000 years ago for the timing of Ramayana. Another shlok from reference from Uttarakanda, from Sarga 96. Okay, let's jump to the last 2 lines. Pracheta soham dashama putro Raghava Nandana. Okay, so Vasudev is saying, if somebody asks, to Kusha, Lava and Kusha, like who you are, he said, just tell you are the students of Valmiki. And if somebody happens to ask, who is this Valmiki? He says, well, I am the 10th descendant of Prachetas. Okay, there is a great glorious line of these Prachetas, okay, or Prachetasas, and that's why he's called Prachetas Muni Valmiki. That somehow is connected to Bhargava, Bhrigu. Also remember Bhrigu Varuni Vidya, that's many times I refer to. Therefore, is also connected with a Varuna. Okay, Varuna is the Swami cardinal, direction, Swami of the Paschima Disha. Okay, there is a reason for that. There is a historical reference to it. That is not the subject today. So is for a Bhrigu. Okay, they're dominant. The area of a dominant area of the Bhrigus, although they were all over. Okay, you'll see in the rest of India and the west of Iran and north of Iran, the prominent area for them was what we call modern day Iran. Okay, the Bhrigu. All right. By the way, that has nothing to do with sage Valmiki of Ramayana being in Iran or Afghanistan or modern day Pakistan. Okay, his ashram was very close to Ayodhya, okay, which is the eastern part of UP. All right. Now I'm just taking that verse just for the context, the last ones there, and just showing you, yeah, there. Okay, so Prachetasoham Dashama Putro Raghava Nandana. He says, Hey Ram, my Varun ji ka दसवा पुत्र हूं, पुत्र है. Now look what they have done here. Okay, so Prachetas, directly the translator has translated this as a Varuna, by taking the reference to Bhrigu, but by taking the reference to Prachetasas, which are also connected with the Varun, their importance in the western direction and so on. Maine aaj tak, so that's one point. I'll come back to that, but a few more things. Now this Valmiki is saying, मैंने आज तक कभी असत्य का स्मरण तक नहीं किया. यह दोनों तुम्हारे पुत्र है. When he is actually meeting Ram, Valmiki finally comes to the court of Rama and he's saying this. Then I'll just quickly skip the Sanskrit verse like Bahuvarsha Sahasrani. I'll just go. Valmiki ji is saying this is very important so that you don't connect with what is said in Skanda Purana, which is said for some other individual and said, hey, hunter, if you do this tapasya, say Rama, you will take rebirth or you'll be reborn in the Vansha of Maharshi Valmiki, which is the story long after Ramayana times. But people have taken this and made Valmiki, the sage Valmiki who is a composer of Ramayana, to be the hunter. And of course, we saw Ratnakar, the dacoit, right? Okay. He's saying, Valmiki is saying to Rama, again, this goes back to 14,000 years ago, okay? After Kusha, Lava have come to the court of Rama and have sung Ramayana up to that point to Bhagwan Ram, okay? At the time of his Ashwamedha Yajna. यदि यह जानकी दुष्ट चरित्रा होती तो मुझे मेरे हजारों वर्षों के लिए हुए अपने तप का फल प्राप्त न हो. So he's like vouching for Sita there. Anyways, you can go and read the story and what happens to Sita. You already know it. If not, again, the idea behind all of this is to encourage you to read Valmiki Ramayana in the original. Anyways, the last one. Valmiki ji says, Man se, karma se, aur vani se bhi. That is what? Mind, sharira, karma, or vani is the intellect. Okay? Vani se bhi, maine kabhi papacharan nahi kiya hai. Okay, now this is very important. How are you going to connect connect Valmiki with either the hunter or the dacoit? There is no basis for it. If you want to know about Valmiki, and suppose there was no information whatsoever about the pedigree, ancestry of Valmiki, and therefore some stories of Valmiki had emerged, maybe as appendix in some other Puranas, and if we have nothing about Valmiki in the Valmiki Ramayana itself, yeah, as a first approximation, it is okay to at least start with the story. At least we know something and we can critically analyze it. But when right in the Valmiki Ramayana, when we have a very clear descriptions of the ancestry and pedigree of Valmiki, sage Valmiki, we have no reason to get into this speculation of what Skanda Purana is saying or what this 15th century Bengali Ramayana is saying, and try to speculate and make unnecessarily chaos. Okay, and then listen to some third grade communist motivated writer who will just tell you that all these stories is what a great Hinduism we have. This is the beauty of Hinduism. Just guys, I mean, if you are so foolish to not understand the game of these individuals, shame on you. Okay, I mean, they are just trying to confuse you, cause the utpat, and you just like with such an ardent desire, like jumping into the flame, just like the fly jumps into the flame, you want to do it. I mean, shame on us. Shame on you, by the way, not us, those people who do it. Now, what could be the motivation? Again, Bhagavad Gita is very useful for that reason. And I would encourage everyone to study Bhagavad Gita. And once you start, never stop, which is this. Okay, so let me see. I had created a summary slide. Let me see. But quickly, if I have it, I'll bring the summary slide. Yeah, I think I have it. But quickly, let me mention these prachetasas, whoever they are, we don't have much information other than they belong to Bhrigu in some fashion. They also belong to Varuna. They're also called as Varunas, like descendants of Varuna. And in Rigved, we will see their references. For example, first mandala, multiple places you'll see the references. Sometimes the epithet prachetas is applied to Indra. Shamte santu prachetasa, okay, which means like a super conscious being. Hey, super conscious being. That tells us what prachetasa means. Of course, from a vyutpatti point of view, pra and chetasa, we can make some sense of it, like a very knowledgeable person, okay, the person of a sharp intellect, okay, we can make that. You also get other descriptions in Rigveda, such as Yam Rakshanti Prachetaso Varuno Mitro Aryama. So there again, you see the connection of a Varuna with Prachetasa. Now, people know somewhere a connection of Varuna with the Bhrigu, and you might so there may be a lot of information available about Prachetasa, Varuna, Bhrigu, their connection, and also Valmiki. Unfortunately, either it is lost or you and me don't know it. So therefore, we should do a adhyayan of all the granthas, all the remaining granthas that we have, and we should preserve them. Okay. Quickly, the one story of Valya Koli, and then I will read the summary to you. Okay, let me see if I'm just ensure that I'm sharing it with you. Okay, here is the summary. Okay, but just a quick story of Valya Koli that I have heard in Marathi. Koli as in typically a fisherman. At least that's my limited understanding in the Marathi context. And story otherwise goes very similar to Ratnakar, the looter, okay, the dacoit, and Narad Muni coming there and asking this individual to start saying Ram. The name Ratnakar is not mentioned, at least what I this in the story that I heard. And there is a funny twist on it, which you may have heard, that this guy is so bad that he cannot even say Ram, but he can say Mara. Mara literally means like kill or go to death or something of that effect. And Narad Muni says, fine. Now, this is a very humorous story. I mean, we can enjoy it. And so he says, fine, just say Mara, 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 Mara. And which means, of course, if you keep on saying it, it turns into Ram, Ram, Ram. Just drop the first Ma, and then now you have Ram, 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 Ram. And then he becomes a Valmiki. That's the story I've heard. Again, it more than likely comes from either that Bengali Ramayana of 15th century or some such similar source. Again, my point is, let's go through this summary. If you want to know about Ram, begin with Valmiki Ramayana. Guys, common sense. Okay? And from a Vijnana Buddhi perspective, Mahatma Mapan Taratamya. I mean, all other Ramayanas will always pay their debt to Valmiki and Valmiki Ramayana. Tulsidas in northern India. Kamba Ramayanam in the Tamil Nadu. In Maharashtra, Santa Eknath wrote Bhavartha Ramayana. And you can go around India and find multiple Ramayanas. They all will always refer to sage Valmiki. Okay, so always start there. All right. If you want to know about Valmiki, begin with Valmiki Ramayana. Like, I don't know if you have, how many of you are familiar with Ram Raksha? Okay, so there Valmiki's, sage Valmiki's description comes, Kujantam Rama Rameti Madhuram Madhuraksharam Aruyya Kavita Shaka Vande Valmiki Kokilam. So that is again just a great praise of sage Valmiki there and his acts of writing Valmiki Ramayana in a beautiful language, okay, and some that can be sung beautifully like a kokila. Okay, next one, individuals get attracted to a narration. This is my experience. You please share your experiences, what you have heard, what how other peoples behave when they tell these stories of Valmiki, which are not based on Valmiki Ramayana, but from extraneous sources. Individuals get attracted. This is my conviction, and Bhagavad Gita supports it. Rather, I learned it from Bhagavad Gita. Individual gets attracted to a narration based on the dominance of Sattva, Raja, Tama in them. Okay, so if you go to the 14th chapter also, the Sattva, Raja, Tama descriptions, but go to 17th chapter, and then Krishna says, Trivida Bhavati Shraddha Dehinansa Swabhavaja. Swabhavaja, that's very important. We talk of this guna, Sattva, Raja, Tama. It can be understood as a Swabhava. Okay. Now, Swabhava can be changed, Swabhava can be modified. And that is the whole idea of doing the Yama, Niyama, and so on, studying Bhagavad Gita, chanting, doing a Vrata, doing Tapasa, and so on. But as is at any given point, Trivida Bhavati Shraddha Dahinansa Swabhavaja Satviki Rajasi Chaiva. He says there are three kinds, and now let me explain those. Then he explains it in the context of every single thing, okay? In the context of ahar, diet, in the context of yajna, dana, tapa, and then it goes on and on. In the 18th chapter, if you go, the sannyas, the tyaga, the buddhi, okay? So this sattva rajatama mixture applies everywhere. And this applies to how people read things, how people interpret things, and so on. When multiple and differing narration exist, judicial use of that mahatva mapan, taratamya that I said is very much required, guys. Very much required. What is the conclusion? That Valmiki was a great learned sage from the Vanshavali, Vansha Parampara, ancestry, pedigree of Prachetas, of Varuna, of Bhrigu. These are all great individuals, okay? And very important point, Valmiki was neither a dacoit, nor a Dalit, nor a Kori fisherman. Not that there is any problem for Valmiki being like that. We have in Mahabharata, we have a story of a Dharma Vyada, okay? We have a story, of Tuladhar Vaishya. We are not talking about that. Person can come from any background. But artificially, we do not have to create these stories. Or if they exist, and if we don't understand the context, then we should strictly avoid it. Or if we preserve it for interesting, humorous purpose, for curiosity, we should be always explicit in mentioning the context of it. All right. Well, that's all I have. Let me stop sharing. Please write your comments. If you like this, share with others. Let me know what different or additional stories of Valmiki that you have heard besides the three that I narrated, or the fourth, if you take Valyakodi, which is very similar to that story of a Ratnakar from 15th century Bengali Ramayana. And also we had a brief reference from Skanda Purana. Actually, there is no reason for anyone to be confused about it, but it appears that some people have taken that basis from Skanda Purana and embellished their own story of Valmiki the hunter. Valmiki Ramayana is very clear on who Valmiki is. Okay, Valmiki's clear connection with the ancestor of Prachetas, Valmiki's connection with the Bhrigu lineage, Valmiki's connection with the Varuna. And the fact that he is a great sage right from the beginning, okay, and he composed that great history for us, Ramayana, and that is the great or oldest surviving itihasa that we have. When I say we, I mean humanity. And therefore is also called Adi Kavi, and Ramayana is called Adi Kavya. So again, greetings to all of you on the very auspicious and great day of the Valmiki Jayanti. And I will see you again in another episode of Shraddha and Pradnya, or in some other context. Namaskar.